Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. We got photographic confirmation that Dennis is alive and well on his vacation in there. And for the last time in the 2023 NFL season, we can say it is a game week.
Yeah.
Coming off that sweet Pro Bowl, I kept my word. I did not watch a single down. I did see Peyton Manning's sad reaction to losing to his brother for the second year in a row. Eli Manning, he's making that Hall of Fame case stronger. He beat Brady twice in Super Bowls.
Yeah.
He's now beaten Peyton twice in Pro Bowls as a coach. I mean, I think he's cementing that legacy.
More important, did you see him dropping bars at whatever camp that he was? Because that right there was more like that's Hall of Fame worthy in its own. I can't remember what it is. I'm gonna butcher it. I will find it, but I'm not even gonna say it. I will find it and we will play it on the show at some point. But that alone is Hall of Fame worthy. So
I have to say, in an era where the commentators for games can be somewhat hit or miss. Even guys I like don't always, you get tired of it. I never really tire of that Manning alternate podcast. I first started putting it on to please my wife because she likes Peyton Manning, as a compromise to have games on.
Right.
And you don't follow the game. You don't get to follow the game as intently maybe as you would, but they have some just hilarious riffs and they're honest reactions to these plays and to things. It also does my heart good having Peyton Manning every time Denver plays. He says we, when he's on there. I watched that Broncos-Bills game, and it made it a little less terrifying for me that Peyton Manning was so invested in it. So I have a lot of fun with those guys. We are going to be diving in. It is still a little bit of off-season stuff. We have some news notes. We will make our picks for who's going to win the NFL honors. And then we will look at 5 players to potentially stash this off-season. But we'll start out with news, some hot stove news. I don't know how great it's going to be. But we went into last weekend with it seeming like Cliff Kingsbury was for sure going to be the Raiders offensive coordinator. We came out of it with him for sure having been hired as the Commanders offensive coordinator. And then in a subsequent move, the Commanders fired Eric Bieniemy, who don't know if he'll end up coaching. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Kingsbury, a lot of talk being made now that Washington is going to be making a strong push to get Caleb Williams, largely tied to Kingsbury. And then how do you feel about Eric Bieniemy, who's probably one of the hottest NFL coordinators 3 years ago? It seems like he and Kellen Moore and Byron Leftwich have kind of like fallen off the shelf here.
Which is insane too to me because I don't know how much of, the Chargers failure I put on Kellen Moore. And I would actually say, I think Eric Bieniemy again continued to improve or prove that he is a worthy, not just only offensive play caller, but possibly a guy who should get a head coaching job. But what he did with that Commanders offense, I mean, get Sam Howell for most of the season. I don't know if he finished it, but most of the season was leading the league in passing. Sam Howell, who was a 4th or 5th round pick that many people did not think was worthy of being a starting quarterback. So, I will be intrigued to see what happens with him. We've heard the rumors over the past couple of years. I want to say it was last year before he ended up taking that offensive coordinator job that like there was rumors about the way he handled certain things in interviews and whatnot for being a head coach. I mean, I don't know what is or isn't true with that. I personally think he's a great coach, and I think he deserves the job. I don't get the Cliff Kingsbury hire, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's – I get Arizona made the playoffs a couple years and that offense was fun to watch, but I don't think he's necessarily a very good play caller. I think a lot of that was more Kyler Murray and just them finding ways to win in what was for a decent amount of time a down, well, it wasn't really a down NFC West because the Rams were coming up and Seattle was still good, but I'll be interested. I mean, I think, Caleb is a bigger version of Kyler Murray, so maybe that'll work out. But this hire doesn't inspire confidence for me personally.
It looks like I'm verifying on his, but according to the NFL.com, Sam Howell finished 12th in passing yardage.
Okay.
Yeah, which is correct. He went through that where they were looking at benching him. He did not finish. He finished just shy of 4,000 yards.
Still, so, not bad for a guy that nobody was expecting to really be the starter. So
I don't know how I feel about the Commanders either. It would make sense if they got Kingsbury, if they're really making a hard push for Caleb Williams, because we know when he went into Arizona, he was pretty deadlocked on Kyler Murray, maybe building around his guy. They have a couple of pieces. Jahan Dotson went in the first round for a reason. Potentially they could revive that. I still like Terry McLaurin. Kind of hard to know what they're going to do with running backs, but I don't recall the running game being a real factor for Cliff Kingsbury unless you talked about Kyler Murray running anytime he was in Arizona. So maybe that doesn't matter that much. But I'd have to – Kingsbury, they did that kind of air raid offense, usually uses a lot of receivers and they would have some work to do, in my opinion. I don't think they have the personnel for that in Washington.
Nope, I agree with you. It's like I said, the hire surprises me. I just don't.
Well, I didn't think it was a great fit for the Raiders either. Or honestly, if we're being honest, for the Bears, I don't think any of those teams currently have the personnel, and we'll have to see, what Kingsbury can do as an offensive coordinator. Another team making offensive coordinator moves, Alex Van Pelt hired as offensive coordinator by the Patriots. They also added Ben McAdoo as an offensive assistant, likely to work with quarterbacks, which presumably their quarterback isn't on their roster. But what are you thinking of that? Obviously, Gerard Mayo trying to build that staff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Van Pelt is an interesting hire, has been with the Browns. Where was he last year? He was with the Browns, right?
He was with the Browns.
Okay, yeah, the Browns, which I don't think their offense was – I don't get why they
he wasn't the play caller, though.
Yeah, so, it was Stefanski, but he still had a decent amount to do with the offense. I don't get why they fired a lot of the staff that they did, especially with the year that they had. But I think it could be an interesting hire. I mean, Ben McAdoo – he had one good season. Like, are they going with? I'll be curious to see what they end up even doing at quarterback. Are they going to keep going with Bailey Zappi? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Like, I think that's going to kind of determine how I think this offense is going to run.
There is somewhat of a push to go back to Mac Jones, because in the wake of Belichick leaving, a lot has come out that he didn't want Mac Jones. Did you see which quarterback he did want to draft?
I did not.
Davis Mills.
Well,
he wanted to wait and take Davis Mills in the third or fourth round. And supposedly, I mean, you never know if that's true, but supposedly that was a little bit of the friction between him and the front office. And, Mac Jones has made some comments that sort of seem to indicate that he didn't have the greatest coaching experience. So maybe they are still, last year was year 3. So they would have to make a decision on him this year. You would think that might tell you, or they could go to a Tagovailoa route and let it play out and see, how it goes. They also have the number 3 overall pick. Mm-hmm. A lot of interesting options, kind of putting that staff together. Clint Kubiak in as offensive coordinator for the Saints. I know he was part of Denver staffs here. Yeah. I loved his father. as both our offensive coordinator during the Mike Shanahan Super Bowl years and as our head coach during the Peyton Manning Super Bowl years. So, he spent a lot of time working with Kyle. Both those guys kind of came up under their fathers there. Curious to see him get a shot. Can't be any worse than what the Saints were last year. And, of course, the Saints' old offensive coordinator has now joined Denver's offensive staff for reasons surpassing all understanding.
Yeah, I mean, Kubiak's an interesting hire. He was the passing game coordinator, I believe, last year for the 49ers. Now, again, that offense really kind of runs through Kyle Shanahan, but you would think he has picked some things up, learned some things from Kyle Shanahan. I think it could be an interesting hire for the Saints to come in there and be their OC. Could be a good thing for Derek Carr. I don't know. I don't love the Saints offense in general, but I do think it could be an interesting hire.
They need some pass catching weapons around Chris Olave too.
Yeah.
I'm still speaking of the Saints for a minute. We did not see much of anything of Kendre Miller. Do you still hold out hope for that?
Yeah, I mean, he was injured for a decent amount of the season. I mean, I don't know if why is his name out of it? Jamal Williams, I assume he's coming back, but I can't imagine he's got much left in the tank. Love him because I think he's a very intriguing and fun personality. Who knows how much? I think Kamara's got at least one more. I know he's got multiple years left on his contract, but I think he's got one more heavy dead cap year before they could get rid of him. So Kendre Miller, he's going to be there for a couple more years. I don't know. He's not on my stash list. I can tell you that. So I'm not super high on him, but I do think if you roster him, you should probably hold on to him because he's just an injury away from possibly being a probably low end RB2.
Kamara has 2 more years on his contract. It would be almost $18 million in dead cap for them to release him this year. Just over 10 to do it next year. I would wager they keep him. He was one of the better parts of that offense still, even after missing games. Mentioned the Raiders missed out on Cliff Kingsbury. Looks like their consolation prize is Luke Getsy, who did not have an impeccable run with the Bears. I have to say, this hire doesn't do a lot for me.
Nope, right there with you. I mean, I don't want to doubt Pierce because of what he was able to do with the Raiders toward the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, you're going from a quarterback
the only thing I can think. Do you think they do this because they think it appeases Devontae Adams? Because Adams would have worked with him.
Yeah, in Green Bay. Maybe. I think you just trade. I don't know what you can get for Devontae Adams at this point, but I don't. I mean, aren't there all the reports that Devontae Adams wants to go to New York with Rodgers?
Yeah,
I don't.
He's trying to get out of there.
Maybe
I
it's just they didn't. I mean, I don't know that the weapons are. I mean, who's their cornerback going to be? I mean, the rumors that we were talking about before the show started.
They're hanging on Aiden O'Connell.
I mean, good luck, Luke Getsy. That's all I'll say.
They're not particularly high up in the draft because they actually finished second in the AFC West.
Yeah,
they weren't incredible, but you could probably get a later tier quarterback. They also don't have a great cap situation, so it'd be interesting to see. Final piece of news: Le'Veon Bell, who has not played in the NFL since 2022 and not really played meaningfully, I think I saw since 2021, depending on how you define meaningfully, would like to make a comeback and would allegedly like to return to the Steelers, who, as far as I know, still have Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, and now have Arthur Smith. If there's ever an offensive coordinator that would like to take a 2-man rotation and make it a 3 to 4-man rotation, it is Arthur Smith. But how much are you buying into this?
Not at all. I mean, I think even if he goes back, it's a great story, and it'll be cool to see him retire as a Steeler. As a Browns fan and someone who watched those, I don't know if they were really historic, but they were extremely fun, even though I hated them. Offenses to watch with A, B, Le'Veon Bell, the killer bees, Big Ben, and the mixture of other wide receivers they had in there throughout the times before that all kind of broke up. it'll be nice to see him go back, and it'll be a nice story in him to probably retire as a Steeler, but I don't think he's got anything left in the tank to take over for Najee or Jalen Moore.
Yeah, I feel the same. Well, that'll do it for news. We are going to quickly hit NFL honors. The telecast is Thursday night, where they hand out the big year-end awards. So Matt and I are just going to go through these year-end awards and give you who we think is going to win. These are all players who are actually in the field. They announced the final list of nominees in each of the categories, which you can look up. We'll start off with the big one, which is NFL MVP. And I said it at the end of the regular season. This is a regular season award. If it was including the postseason, it might have changed some things for people, but I still think Lamar Jackson sewed this one up with the way he finished the year.
Yeah, I agree with you again. Regular season award, I think well deserved by him, was arguably, I think the only other player that should be in the discussion is Christian McCaffrey. So I would love to give it to him, but the NFL and the MVP, just like the Heisman is turned to in college football, it's a quarterback award. So I think Lamar is going to get it.
McCaffrey does have a shot at NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Do you think he takes home that hardware?
Yeah, he's my pick to win that. Like I said, I think if I was a voter, I am not, I would actually vote Christian McCaffrey for the NFL MVP. But again, I don't think that he is going to get that. So then I think they will kind of grace him with the NFL Offensive Player of the Year award. I think was the only is Tyreek Hill is in there. Like, I don't.
Yeah, so that was where it came down to for me. If Tyreek Hill would have finished on the pace that he started and would have actually eclipsed 2,000 yards, I think he would have gotten it.
Yeah.
But the guy who actually eclipsed 2,000 total yards was Christian McCaffrey, who was just an offensive machine. I am kind of right there with you. I was on the border of giving him MVP. I'll tell you who I wasn't on the board of giving. I thought they were making fun of Dak when they said he was on the short list for NFL MVP. Nope. He actually was, and nothing against him. He had a decent year, but I just did not at any point in time think of him in those terms. So we are lockstep right now. We will probably go a little bit differently here. NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I went with the Cowboys' DaRon Bland. There were a lot of good nominees in the field who did good things. I didn't think anybody had necessarily a spectacular statistical year. So for me, I went with Bland because we may have forgotten because it feels like it was a million years ago, but he actually broke an NFL record for touchdowns on interception returns. He was like an interception machine during the heart of the season. So I leaned that way. Where did you go with that one?
Homer pick, Myles Garrett. In my opinion, the Browns have the best defense all year. You give this award to the best player on the best defense. I think that he deserves it with the year that he had as well. Definitely, probably statistically doesn't line up with Bland there, but I think overall you would give this to the best player on the best defense. And in my opinion, the Browns have the best defense all year.
Yeah, it was one of those fields, though. I could have made a case for any of the people. I think Myles Garrett was a totally worthy pick as well. How about NFL Coach of the Year? Where are you leaning?
Man, there's so many good picks on here. You know, Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kevin Stefanski, DeMeco Ryans. I think it's going to come down to – I actually think Dan Campbell has a shot to win it because the Lions were such a great story all year and people tend to vote that way. But if it were me, I think it's got to come down to DeMeco Ryans or Kevin Stefanski. And I think you've got to give it to DeMeco Ryans. Like, I love what Kevin Stefanski did with the Browns this year. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for getting that team into the playoffs again with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And not even just that, all the injuries they suffered on the offense and defensive side of the ball throughout the year. But what DeMeco Ryans did, I think you have to say is incredibly special. You know, not even just us on this show, who none of us picked, I believe, the Texans to even have a winning record, much less make the playoffs and win that division, but then to win a playoff game against that Browns team. And I get it is a regular season award, but what he was able to do with that Houston Texans team, again, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say there were many people who believe this would be a 3 to 5 year turnaround with the amount of picks that they got rid of and everything going on, and to get into the playoffs and legitimately look like a team that's going to challenge for the AFC South moving forward. He deserves it. He would get my vote as much as I'd love Stefanski to win it.
In fact, a lot of people thought it might be a 3 to 5 win team this year. I was with you in the Stefanski Ryans I've gone back and forth a few times since, but I ultimately landed with D'Amico Ryans. I think that there's going to be a huge swell, especially seeing as the Texans won that division and got to go basically from worst to first and get in. And that's why NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, I went with CJ Stroud. He had an incredible season as the quarterback there. Puka Nacua could definitely play a spoiler, but I'm kind of with you in both Rookie of the Year and MVP. If there's a close race, it feels like the benefit of the doubt goes to the quarterback.
Yeah, again, I think with what Stroud did, I love what Puka did, and it was a great story, especially a 4th-round pick. But the storylines are going to be there. CJ Stroud, number 2 pick overall. What he did again, I don't know that anybody expected the Rams to be a great team this year, but I think everybody expected them to be good with Matt Stafford at quarterback and Sean McVay as the head coach. And Puka thrived. Don't get me wrong. He was amazing. But again, what CJ Stroud was able to do, there were idiots like this dude, Matt Bruning, who were out here saying that CJ Stroud was a horrible fit for the Texans. The dude just went out there and balled out. Didn't look like a rookie. He looked like a seasoned veteran out there. I think he deserves the award.
How about Defensive Rookie of the Year?
This one was a little bit harder. We were talking about this right before the show. I think much like the Defensive Player of the Year, I think you could argue for like most of these guys. It came down to me between Will Anderson, the Texans defensive end, and the safety for the Lions, Brian Branch. I went ahead and went with Will Anderson, just had them sweeping those awards. Again, I thought what the Texans defense did this year was incredible. All those guys really kind of close together. So I just went ahead and leaned in with him. What do you have? 7 sacks, 10 tackles, 22 QB hits. Like, he was one of the better edge rushers, in my opinion, in the league last year as a rookie. So I gave it to him.
Yeah, I ended up going with Will Anderson too. I think, it's going to be a strong Texans night. And honestly, after the last few years for that franchise, they're due. Yeah. NFL Comeback Player of the Year. This isn't because of anything spectacular on the field, but I feel like the NFL has been willing this award to go to Damar Hamlin since preseason. And it is an amazing story, not to take anything away from that. And he's been an amazing ambassador for the league and for medical care and things like that. So I ended up leaning that way. How about you?
Yeah, I'm probably going to get canceled, but I'm going Joe Flacco. Him coming in, doing what he
did. That was an on-field selection.
Yeah.
He was incredible down the stretch.
13 touchdowns, 4-1 to get the Browns to the playoffs. Granted, again, regular season award, because if you look at that playoff game, it wasn't pretty. But I think it's him, Damar Hamlin, Baker Mayfield are kind of like seems the 3 guys kind of leading that charge. I get why you give it to Damar Hamlin, because it is a great story to see him back out there after everything that happened. That was obviously an extremely scary situation, and we're very happy that everything is okay with him. But it's supposed to be an on-field award, and I don't know. I'm sure some of it due to what the man had to go through. I can't imagine what that is like to have to go through all that and just get back out there on the field. So I imagine that he will win the award because of that. But like the play on the field, I think if he goes out there and does even better next year, I think that would be the year to give him the award. I think they'll give him the award this year. I think Joe Flacco is more deserving, but that's who I would vote for. But I think Damar Hamlin's going to win it.
And the last award is NFL Assistant Coach of the Year. Who did you go with here?
Yeah, so I kind of took your strategy just to steal the limelight here. We talked about before the show. We both talked. We were torn between D'Amico Ryans and Kevin Stefanski, so gave some member of the Cleveland Browns coaching staff a win. And Jim Schwartz. It's also very depressing to realize how great that Browns defense was this year because, and I, for the life of me, can't remember who it was the year prior, but it was Kevin Stefanski's boy for the past couple of years. If he had just fired him to begin with after he was not good. Yeah, there we go. If he had just fired him early on because we all could tell he was not a good defensive coordinator and maybe brought Jim Schwartz in, the Browns could have been good for the past couple of years in making the playoffs. But what he was able to do with that defense, I think, was short of extraordinary, especially from what the defense was doing beforehand with Woods. I think he deserves it. Ben Johnson, I think, is the other guy that you will talk about with what the Lions offense was able to do.
Yeah, and he could end up getting some spillover in this category from the people that really wanted to lean Dan Campbell in Coach of the Year. This feels almost like when you're watching a movie in the Academy Awards and you have a Best Actor and a Best Supporting Actor nominee, and you're really on the fence, and you go with one for Best Actor and you want to recognize another one. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I also went with Jim Schwartz. I was just impressed. I mean, Cleveland won 11 games. And after losing Chubb and getting basically nothing from Deshaun Watson and unironically starting PJ Walker for a stretch of games, it was pretty impressive what they were able to do. Well, before we get out of here, we looked at running backs and pass catchers that we want to move on from this offseason. But this is the time of year where you want to stash or pick up some guys on the cheap that you think could end up with an expanded role for their team next season. So these are 5 players we're stashing before we go through free agency, before we go through drafts, that we think have a chance if things shake out right. So, Matt, you and I have the same number 1, which is quarterback, which is Baker Mayfield. Why don't you make your case for Baker?
I mean, look at what he did last year. I was someone who stood firmly in that the Browns should not cut him. And you know what? I'm going to go off on a tangent really quick here. I also said that the Browns should not. There was a massive argument that I had on Devi Debate with 2 co-hosts where I said that I would have kept Baker Mayfield over one Aaron Rodgers a couple years ago. I'm starting to feel a little bit more justified every single year Baker plays because he was great this year. Or I should say great. He was really, really good with the Buccaneers this year. I think that he's going to go back to that team, but even if he doesn't, there are multiple NFL teams that are looking for a starting quarterback. You mentioned a team like the Raiders could. I mean, I know they don't have a ton of cap room, but maybe they could reach out to him. But the way he played last year, I think he's going to be a starting quarterback. There were multiple weeks that I felt like he was start worthy in fantasy leagues as well. He's a guy that probably is fairly cheap. If you have him on your team, I definitely think he is worth stashing. So he would be one of the top quarterbacks. Like the other guys I was looking at, quarterback wise, I feel like we're probably already Baker Mayfield finished QB 10. So I was right. He was startable most of the year, if not every single week. Guys like I was thinking about, I was going to put Sam Howell, but again, I really think they're going to do everything they can to get Caleb Williams. So then you're not stashing a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I really dropped Sam Howell down in the rankings.
Yeah. I mean, the only other one I was thinking about.
I think he's going to be Davis Mills. There's just a big part of me that thinks he's going to get the Davis Mills treatment.
The only other player I was thinking about stashing, but I think won't really, how do I put this? Like he's rostered everywhere. I don't think you'll be able to say is Anthony Richardson. So we didn't get to see enough of him last year, and I think that he will be a really good weapon for that Colts offense. So yeah, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you with Baker. I know he's a free agent. We don't know where he's going to land. I actually just redid and updated all my dynasty rankings for Campus to Canton today. I let Colin know. He seemed very happy. So hopefully those got updated on the site. But I still have Baker at 18 right now as a strong QB2. This is pre having rookies get merged in. But I think he's still got a couple of good years left, and I think he's going to have some opportunities. He would be great, I think, going back to Tampa Bay. Now he's going to get a new offensive coordinator and new system there, but I think he actually has some other options and opportunities too. That's I made a joke pre-show with you that the rumors that they may try to go after Jimmy G if he gets cut in Denver, but the other one that has been mentioned is Baker, and I actually wouldn't be upset about that. I thought he had a decent chance. Carolina turned out to be more of a dumpster fire than I think we realized. Yeah. But we saw the seeds of this when he got limited time to learn an offense and got thrown into the deep end with Sean McVay and a very complicated system with the Rams. And, I thought he showed some great poise. He just won Pro Bowl MVP. Yeah. So, I mean, he is on a high right now. Our second player, I'm just going to jump to this one because we actually had one more in common, is running back Chase Brown. And, I had mentioned when we were talking about Joe Mixon how much I liked what I saw from Chase Brown in that limited role. I think whether or not they bring back Mixon or somebody else in, we're going to see an expanded role for Chase Brown. He popped in that offense. I think they drafted him for a reason. I am excited to see what he does, and I think he could end up having weekly starting value as soon as next year. So that is a guy that I'm pretty high on stashing. Looks like he was on your list as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love Chase Brown coming out. Explosive athlete, good receiving running back as well. As you mentioned, toward the end of the season, we started to see him get more and more carries. They can get out of Joe Mixon's contract for a $2 million dead cap hit this year. I mean, I don't know that they will do that, but even if they do, I think that's great for Chase Brown. If they don't, I still think it's good for him. They could use him. I know, obviously,
he could be their Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I was going to say just kind of keep it in the Bengals tree. Even though I know different coaches, he could be their Giovanni Bernard for what Bernard was then for a good amount of time, especially in the receiving game. So I like Chase Brown. I don't know that he'll ever be an RB1, but I think, in especially the leagues you and me play, and with so many flex spots and everything, I think he'll be starter worthy every single week. Is like a low end RB2, high end RB3, and he'll have those boom weeks that really kind of help you win. So yeah, I'm all in on Chase Brown.
Who is your number 3?
My number 3 player, Cedric Tillman, which I know seems a little controversial because he did not necessarily have a good season. He had a spike weeks there between weeks 11 and right toward the end of the year into week 16, was dealing with a concussion at the end of the season. Joe Flacco, I thought, raised that a little bit for him. I am a little worried with getting Deshaun Watson back because, let's be honest, Deshaun Watson has not looked great. And Amari Cooper is going to clearly be the one there. And we also saw David Njoku take a massive step up as well with Joe Flacco. So maybe he moves into that number 2 role. But I think Tillman as a route runner is not Amari Cooper, but I think he's much better than Elijah Moore. I think he's going to be that other threat on the outside. I think he can take over as that probably third option in that offense, and possibly with Deshaun Watson coming back, if he's able to elevate his game some, I think Tillman could be a sneaky buy for the Cleveland Browns offense. I think a lot of people will be all in on Njoku and Elijah Moore, and I think Tillman has a chance to really rise next year.
Yeah, and it seemed like when them moving on from DPJ midseason, dealing him to Detroit was kind of a nod toward Cedric Tillman being ready and them being ready to rely on him. My number 3 is Zamir White. Josh Jacobs was on the franchise tag last year. I do not expect him to be back. You just heard us talk about our reservations a little bit about that Raiders offense, but you know what? Zamir White got a pretty healthy audition to end the last season, and I thought he looked great, being able to carry the load and being productive. The Raiders are a team that won't have a ton of cap options either, so I like the potential of him having a significant role there. And he was a guy, he probably got picked up a lot down the stretch of the season. Will people keep him when they're cleaning up their rosters and having to make spots for the people that were on IR? He's a guy I'm looking out for, and I am stashing, especially as we go into free agency and the draft, to see how things shake out, because the Raiders, no one knows what they're going to do.
Yeah. So my next is where'd it go? Zach Evans, running back for the Los Angeles Rams, which I know is probably going to sound crazy to some, especially with how well Kyren Williams looked toward the end of the year, stepped up in a massive way and played really good for them. What do you have? Like 1,100? Was it 1,100 yards? Yeah. And 12 touchdowns. They, for the most part, though, toward the end of the season, were splitting between multiple running backs. Like, I'm going to be honest, I didn't even realize Royce Freeman was still in the league, and he was getting carries.
Only his mother realized he was still in the league.
You're probably not wrong there. He was getting a decent amount of carries. It was split between Darrell Henderson. I mean, poor Cam Akers. I don't know that Kyren, me personally, I do not believe
Akers
Kyren
was now the Vikings problem.
Yeah. I do not think that Kyren Williams is a workhorse back. I just don't think that he has the explosiveness or the size to do that. We've seen in the past that Sean McVay really likes to lean on those 2 running back sets. Now, again, I get it. Zach Evans had 9 carries on the entire season for 19 yards. Not pretty. But I still believe in him as a talent and what I saw from him in college. I think he's better than Royce Freeman, if he'll even be on. I don't even know if Freeman will be on the roster next year. I think it will be a split between the 2 of them. And I would not be surprised if Evans ends up taking over. As crazy as that's going to seem, I just think he's a better prospect than Kyron Williams.
Well, I mean, we've seen this a lot from the Rams, especially year one. Kyron Williams only had 35 attempts for 139 yards over 10 games as a rookie. You know, we saw that even with Cam Akers, who was a second round pick his rookie year. He was like second or third in the rotation. They had Darrell Henderson, but who was the other guy that just like was like fantasy kryptonite all the time? I'll think of it eventually. He moved on to a few other teams, but was, you know, we've seen the Rams kind of, even Darrell Henderson, we were excited when he was first taken. He didn't really work himself in as a rookie. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right that it's year two for Zach Evans. My number 4 guy that I'm going with is a Jet, Xavier Gibson. I obviously wasn't incredibly high on the Jets going into last year, and I'm still not a huge Aaron Rodgers lover, but Aaron Rodgers will be a step up over everything that the Jets had at quarterback to end the season. Especially after Zach Wilson got knocked out, we just saw some dreadful options. And the New York receiver room was really stacked, we thought, going in to last season. But we saw Alan Lazard really kind of falling out of favor. Was even a healthy inactive at some points in time. They traded Mecole Hardman. Corey Davis retired. Randall Cobb's not getting any younger. Garrett Wilson is by far the number 1 receiver there. Breece Hall is the number 2 option and probably the number 2 option in the passing game as well. But Gibson really kind of started to step up toward the end of the season. An undrafted player, played a lot of special teams at the beginning, ended up seeing 38 targets, ended up starting 3 games all in the back half of the season, caught 21 passes for 229 yards. Doesn't blow you away with the stats, but I think there is potential and a role there, and I like him. He is a young guy that I'm stashing, especially for what I think will be a little more productive Jets pass offense in 2024.
Yeah, my last player, speaking of possibly being a more productive passing offense, this is the only reason I like the Luke Getsy hire. Michael Mayer. I loved him at Notre Dame. I thought he had a chance to be possibly the next great Notre Dame Fighting Irish tight end in the NFL. Actually had multiple tight end 1 weeks last year. It was 3 of them that he finished in the top 10. Didn't have a great season overall. Ended the season on the IR. But the best part about that Chicago Bears offense last year was Cole Kmet, who took a massive jump forward. It didn't start off great, but then ended up as tight end 8, I believe, on the season. Luke Getsy coming over there. I think that he will help target him. We'll see what happens. The other big part about this is we were talking about pre-show. Davante Adams, who has been trying to make that push to get out of Las Vegas, if he's out, I think that wide receiver room opens up widely to possibly anybody taking over. I like Michael Mayer. I think he's an extremely talented quarterback, whether it's Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield, draft somebody, whoever it is. I think he could be a center point of that offense. I think you can get him fairly cheap. I know he wasn't going high in rookie drafts last year. I think he's a player you could grab and stash and could be a sneaky tight end 1 in 2024.
That would be great. I mean, we saw some flashes last year, but that Raiders offense, and especially if they end up moving on from Davante Adams, we mentioned they don't have a ton of cap. They don't have incredible draft capital either. And beyond Jacoby Myers, and I don't know what to make of Hunter Renfrow, if we're being honest. They don't have a ton of receiving options. I could see him having a real year 2 explosion like what we saw from Trey McBride in Arizona. My last player, I'm going with Dontavian Wicks. If Dennis was here, he would be both shedding a tear and clapping. He's been on the Dontavian Wicks train for a long time. And, you know, the more that I've looked at that Green Bay passing game, I'm right there with him. Wicks, as a rookie, kind of working himself up the depth chart. Obviously, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, we love what we saw. But the one that I always pick out from there is Christian Watson. He was limited to 9 games, started all 9 games and saw 53 targets. Dontavian Wicks only started 6 games, saw 58 targets, caught 39 passes for 581 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was actually the 3rd most targeted player for the Green Bay Packers. I still think he's probably the one going under the radar the most. If we were ranking in Dynasty I would have Jaden Reed and Romeo Dubs higher, but you know what? I don't have Christian Watson higher anymore. I am sort of out on Christian Watson. I think we could see Dontavian Wicks carving out a little bit of a bigger role. He looked really good in that role, had some splash moments in the playoffs as well. So he is another guy that I am stashing as we move forward into the offseason.
Oh man, it's 2 minutes long. No.
Did you find it?
I did, but like I only want to hear the Eli Manning part, so I don't know what part. Let me skip forward to. Okay, I think I got it right. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Let me see here. Oh, what happened? There we go. I'm just gonna throw it up here. We'll just present it. You really haven't seen this, huh?
no, I did not watch the Pro Bowl.
It wasn't on the Pro Bowl. I don't know
Oh.
where this was. I don't. Here, I'll expand it right there. So.
Oh, this must have been during the skills challenge.
Days of the year. What are you talking about? But yeah, real rap. That's real life. Go ahead and spit that, Elvis.
All right. Let me spit. Super hot fire. You're a glasses, jacket, shirt wearing dirt. I run New York.
I know that.
You can never dress better than me.
Whoa. Flag on the field.
Hey, what?
Flag on the field. Favorite.
He's a quarterback.
I don't care. He touching the player, man. That's roughing the rapper. 15-yard penalty. Back up.
This is the new.
Back up.
Is this good?
All right, this has got to be coming up here. This is the part. This is the good part right here.
Matter of fact, stay right there. That's good. Now rap.
Super hot fire. Got nothing on me. You can't even pee. Super hot fire. Come on, and come back. Come on, give me back, Dex. And come back, Dex.
He's about to take his
Here
shot.
we go. Here we go. Are you ready? You ready?
Go ahead, Ephesians.
I'm Eli Manning. I'm nice. Tom Brady's the GOAT. Psych! I beat him twice!
That's the big
Hold me
thing.
back! Hold me back!
That right there. That alone. Hall of Fame right there.
I didn't hear it, but I do remember seeing the meme
okay.
for that, the quote meme.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong.
He's
He
not
got him
wrong.
twice.
He
Now
did.
he's got his brother twice. So
He did. Yeah. He's
I
on
mean-
fire. He's on fire.
the two best quarterbacks of their generation, he's taken them out both as a player and as a coach. We always talk about how funny Peyton Manning is. Eli Manning might stealthily be funnier.
Oh,
I mean,
100%
just
it is.
Like, I don't know if you saw the Manning cast where they were talking about Jeff Saturday and Peyton kept talking about sticking his hand in there.
Yeah.
Eli's reactions to that and his protestations that they stopped using the word butt cheek on the air were incredible. And on that note, I can't think of a better way to end today's episode. We will be back on Friday with a preview of. I heard there's some kind of game that Taylor Swift is going to be attending later in Las Vegas. I don't know what that is. Super Bowl 58. Thank God for Super Bowl week having started. I could not remember which number we were on, but now I've seen it. And I don't know about you, but I can't really feel confident in my reading of the Roman numerals. I wish they would just drop real numbers.
I just type in Super Bowl and find the one where it says the actual number so that I know what it is. So I'm not gonna with you.
So Super Bowl 58, we will look up some fun prop bets. San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I actually have some high hopes for that, and I have some high hopes for the list of trailers we're going to be seeing, including they have made certain we are getting a big Deadpool 3 trailer, and I know you, like me, have got that. I'm almost more excited for that than the actual game.
Yeah, 100%, because I want both teams to lose. So I'm going to be mad at the end of the game no matter what, but I won't be mad to watch a Deadpool.
You got to invest some time in the menu, because then at least you'll be happy about the food. But that'll do it for us today. We will be back on Friday with all things Super Bowl. Until then, you guys have a wonderful